Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is the Before the Storm edition, episode 275. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger. Today's March 13th, 2017.
Okay, I get email from some people who accuse us of being all weather all the time. Kevin, you always talk, you're obsessed with the weather. Well, yeah. I mean, my weather is different from George's, and so sometimes I like to mention it.
And Kevin, if we had the ratings of the Weather Channel, we wouldn't be complaining, would we?
Right now, I'm watching 7 guys on the Weather Channel. They all need Xanax, all right? They're excited beyond belief. And I can see some of the reason for that because in my past, I had a weather experience. Today is March 13th, 2017. It was exactly 25 years ago today. My wife and I left the humble town of Huntsville, Alabama, where we had our first jobs out of college, and we moved north. I packed my wife, who was 6 months pregnant, into a U-Haul in the front. She was in the front seat.
You didn't box her up, did you?
Did not box her up.
Because, they've got that little place above the cab. They call it the mother's attic or whatever.
Yep, right at the top. Yeah, you
stick her up there. And
stick her up there. Here's your phone. Here's some, keep her comfortable. But no, she insisted on sitting in the coach. So I pack up my wife. We had a dog. We had some other things. And a good 17-foot U-Haul completely full. And then, back then, nobody really paid attention to the weather. My neighbor came across and said, "It's going to snow. Snow in Alabama? That's cool." "Oh, they're saying it's going to snow forever." So, what are you talking about? "We're going to get 3 inches. Oh, you're screwed. Huntsville in 1993 and 3 inches? It's all over. That's Armageddon. So my wife and I quickly packed up and started heading north. We drove up 65 to Indianapolis. We took a right onto 80 and took 84 into Connecticut, and basically drove through snow the whole way. 2 inches, closed highways, just a mess. But we grew up in Wisconsin. We didn't think it was a big deal. We arrived here, and it was called the Storm of the Century. Wow.
Last century.
Well, it's a brand new century, and apparently tomorrow Armageddon is going to hit Connecticut again. So we look forward to that. If you want the details, watch the Weather Channel, or I'll just give you updates on Facebook throughout the day.
Well, Kevin, down here it'll be 75, sunny, low humidity, light breezes from the Gulf.
Ah, nice. Now, we updated people last week about your parents. What's going on there?
Well, my mother's back in the hospital, went from the nursing home to the hospital, and now in the hospital she says she doesn't want to go back to the nursing home. She wants to go home. And,
Smart lady, yep.
And they've been giving her steroids to help her with her breathing. And I think they have gone to her head because she's has roid rage right now. And so it's a little trying upon my wife. Because Susan, everybody loves Susan, and Susan is the caregiver, and my mother's being a little aggressive right now. But my father's doing well, and one thing after another, Kevin. This is a fun time of life.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both have elderly parents, and we're going through that time of life where we have to.
They don't like that word. Infirm, yes. Elderly, no.
No, okay. Ooh, gee, I gotta be sure how to talk in front of Mom.
Because, Kevin, elderly in Florida are 90 plus.
That's okay? Right.
You can be 75 in the prime of your life down here. 60 is the new 30.
That's right. All right, we got news to talk about. Not just weather, not just parents. The Diocese of South Carolina has voted to ask the ACNA to accept it as a new diocese in the ACNA. George, you were wrong.
You're right. I was wrong. Not about the outcome. I don't think we doubted that they would take it, but I misjudged the lack of enthusiasm in this vote that I saw on the ground with sort of hesitation. And as I think about it now, this has been taken so long that people just couldn't maintain the excitement that they had a year or two ago. So I misjudged the mood, but not
No,
the trajectory.
you and I both did. I said on the last show, I bet they get a 75% vote to move into the ACNA. That's good enough. Well, apparently not. They had a 100% vote in all the orders, and now the Diocese of South Carolina, if the ACNA lets it in, I don't know what they're going to do. But if they get in, they'll be the largest diocese in the ACNA, George.
Well, you laugh, Kevin, but if I were in the ACNA and I held some of the more stronger opinions on the margins, I'd be a little concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's going to come down the pike for the ACNA? Women's orders in their prayer book.
Mm-hmm.
And the prayer book critics, some critics within the ACNA are saying the prayer book is just a bit too Anglo-Catholic. It's a bit too high church. And last year or so, we saw this little go round of should we drop the filioque so we're nice to the Orthodox? And that caused a bit of a pushback in some quarters. And also the issue of women clergy. If you're really hot to trot on women clergy, like New England or the Mid-Atlantic, or if you really think that it's the reason why everything went to hell in a handbasket, like the Ford and Faith Diocese, you're going to be paying attention to where South Carolina is coming from, because it's now the biggest player in the room.
True.
The biggest.
It's going to have the same amount of votes, though.
Yeah, but it's going to have the biggest
deal table here.
Yeah, it's going to have the biggest roll of bills at the casino table. Okay, but you've got 22,000 members,
Mm-hmm.
and you're the oldest diocese in the ACNA. You're going to have a very loud voice in its deliberations.
And you have the honeymoon period.
Well, yes, but at the same time, it's going to replace some people. Some people's voices are not going to be as loud, mm-hmm. and not going to be as important. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this works out. Well, I agree. There's going to be a honeymoon period. Everybody's going to be sweet love and happiness. They're all going. ACNA next bishops' meeting. They're going to gather on a hillside, hold candles, and sing "I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing," and do all sorts of peace, love, and happiness stuff. But when you've got Anglican priests gathered, where 2 or 3 are together, you have 4 opinions.
No, and that's true. I mean, they've gone through, by passing the women's orders bucket down the road, kicking it down the road. They've had a nice element of peace. They have a gentleman's agreement. No bishop is going to talk bad about another bishop in public. They've done well to maintain peace. And it's going to be interesting to see now what's going to happen over time. I don't expect anything big this year. I may be wrong. I've heard rumors here and there, but until I get a little bit more concrete knowledge of what's going on the ground at the House of Bishops, we're going to keep the rumors down a little.
Well, what we do know is that the ACNA people on the GAFCON theological task forces have really been, I don't want to say pushing, but they've been asking for restraint from some of the GAFCON provinces not to go ahead with women bishops. Mm-hmm. Uganda, Kenya, and Rwanda, Sudan, they all have women clergy. And there were even rumors about that a woman bishop had been consecrated in the Sudan. I've been trying to track that down, and I've had no luck. They've got other issues to deal with besides answering my emails.
Yeah, that's right. Sudan.
So from what I've been able to gather, the Ugandans said, okay, we'll hold our horses. The question is whether the Kenyans will. Kenya is not as uniform. Uganda is a solid province in the sense that the ethos, the culture there is one of, they've just been blessed by outstanding leaders over the past 25 years.
They're very mature, too.
Kenya has had, Eliud Wabakula has had a fantastic leader. His predecessor, Benjamin Nzimbi, was a great guy. But then you've got problems, like the Bishop of Nairobi. Remember, folks, he's the guy who forged the signature to get out to the ACC meeting. And for his troubles, he was made a member of the ACC Standing Committee, and he's now the African bishop on the Lambeth Design Conference. It pays to be a sellout. So Kenya may cause some problems by ordaining a woman because the provincial secretary is a woman in Kenya. So GAFCON and the ACNA are sort of saying, folks, let's hold the line until we're all on the same page.
Sure.
And I wonder if, is the tail going to wag the dog or is the dog going to wag the tail on this
Well,
women's issue?
that's why you and I exist, to bring people the news and analysis. And this is a great transition period because I want to talk about Tanzania. George and I are very fond of Tanzania. We went there for the primates meeting. We were there with all these reporters. We got, because we didn't have access to the primates, we sat and drank Diet Coke in a Tahiki bar off the White Sands Hotel. Well, I had fun, George.
And I had dysentery, but
You
that's
got
another
sick.
story.
Yeah, George, about the fourth day in, just dropped and disappeared for a while. A lot of reporters did. That's when I took my magic pills from my doctor, who said, if people around you start getting sick, take these pills. And I did. All right, so let's talk about Tanzania. Last week we talked about some issues between Valentino and the new Archbishop. This is the pronunciation. I'm going to leave it to
Jacob
you, George.
Chimiladaya.
You got it? All right.
Chimiladaya.
Okay, good.
Jacob. We're calling him Jacob. We
Jacob,
can't pronounce his
Archbishop
name.
Jacob. Got it. All right. What's the story? You didn't freeze again, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
I'm just waiting for your cue.
Okay, here's my cue. What's the story?
There's been this confrontation on Sunday at St. Albans Cathedral in Dar es Salaam between the forces of the Archbishop and the forces of the Bishop of Dar es Salaam. The Archbishop deposed in January Valentino Mokiwa for corruption. And Valentino is corrupt, as is Jacob. They're both dirty. And so this is a convenient excuse to get rid of political rivals.
Mm-hmm.
And the Anglo-Catholics have not been sending any money. Their diocese have not been sending any money to the central office under the current Archbishop. And under the last Archbishop, Valentino, the evangelicals wouldn't send any money to the national offices. And Tanzania really is ripe for a schism, a split, not between liberals and conservatives, but between high church and low church. And historically, the third party who swung it either way are those bishops from the Wagogo tribe around the city of Dodoma in central Tanganyika. They want their own province. So we may see Tanzania finally disintegrate. The problem now, why is it, this is an mildly interesting little political story. But GAFCON, this is GAFCON's backyard.
Yep.
Wokiwa was one of the founding GAFCON primates. Chimiladaya is a GAFCON primate. He was the one who preached at the installation of the new Archbishop of Kenya. GAFCON has spoken about corruption and moral personal integrity in a roundabout way. They're happy to beat up on the Episcopal Church, and I am too. I'm not saying that's wrong. And I'm an Episcopalian. I'm a masochist. But GAFCON has allowed people on the left, like Archbishop Justin Welby or Josiah Wadawi Farone, to co-opt the corruption issue in Africa. So Welby...
Justin Welby would tell you that, you guys are making a big issue out of sexual politics here in the West. The big issue is corruption in Africa.
And in a sense, he's right. Mm-hmm. Homosexuality is not an issue in Africa. It's not dividing the church there. The Africans don't want the West to divide the church over that issue. And corruption in South Africa, in Tanzania, in West Africa, in certain portions of Kenya, is destroying the church. We had a story in the Anglican Ink last week. The Bishop of Bo, which is the countryside in Sierra Leone, he, in 2014, was one of the people out there on the Ebola outbreak. He raised a great deal of money to help fight Ebola from Episcopal Church Relief and Development, the USPG, and other charities. Well, he was arrested and went before a court last week charged with embezzling $250,000 of the Ebola funds. Mm. He went to General Synod last year and told these stories about how he would go into the countryside and bring food and medicine to poor people dying in villages. It was all made up. And now this fellow may be solid on the Trinity. He may be solid on human sexuality, but he has personal moral failings
Does
that
have
led him to
surveillance,
steal.
yes.
And the left loves to say, whenever you talk about homosexuality, the left love to say, what about polygamy in Africa? In fact, all these bishops are polygamous. That's totally untrue. But there's enough of a little taint that people say, well, it might be true because you never know what's happened in the Sudan.
Sure.
And then they toss out corruption. At Lambeth 98, I shared a cab with Ron Haynes, who is the Bishop of Washington, to the airport. And he was just going on and on and on about how angry he was with the Ugandans, because the Diocese of Washington had been giving money to Uganda for years, and they expected the Ugandans to vote the right way. And when they didn't, they violated basically the terms of the understanding they had. We send you money, you do what we say. So the left uses corruption. The Bishop of Nairobi is corrupt, and he's now on the ACC Standing Committee on the Lambeth Design Conference because Lambeth Palace needs a corrupt, pliant African. What can GAFCON do?
Let's get to the point here. GAFCON has a role in this. What can that role be?
Well, technically, politically, they can't do anything. They can't, they can't walk into Tanzania and clean house. Basically, I think the bankruptcy court needs to take action in Tanzania and liquidate the thing, start over. They can set what they've done in Uganda. Nigeria, Eliud Wabakula in Kenya. The vast majority of African bishops are lions of the faith. They are men of integrity. They are people who model Christian faithfulness. Mm-hmm. And then there are the other guys. And they need to clean house.
That's going to be the biggest problem. What can GAFCON do? They can start, acknowledging that there is a problem and put together some type of policy of how to deal with this type of situation. The reality is the world is watching, and GAFCON is the new thing in town. It's the growing thing in town. It's where everybody wants to be. And these are situations where a bunch of leaders have to start making a bunch of decisions.
Let me give you a little vignette. A friend of ours, yours and mine, he was Archbishop Peter Akinola's press officer. And he was one of the press team at the first GAFCON conference. At the GAFCON conference in Jerusalem, it was announced that he was going to become a bishop. They made a new diocese was being formed. And I said, that's wonderful. Here, I was flush in those days. I said, here's $1,000 to start your Episcopal Discretionary Fund. Because he basically was starting from scratch. Middle of nowhere diocese, no resources, nothing. He's the first bishop. In essence, he's got to start it from nothing. And I offered him money to help him get going. And he refused it. And he was utterly horrified. He did not want money that did not come from the people in his diocese to do the work of Christ in his diocese. That man, that bishop, had an attitude that would basically make corruption unthinkable. Why can't we see that attitude elsewhere?
All right. Well, you need to go. So let's do a quick sign off. GAFCON, let's hear from you, and congratulations to the Diocese of South Carolina. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger, and no, I don't have any more money to give out to people. And you've been watching episode 275 of Anglican Unscripted.